Welcome to Let's Talk Sports. I'm Ron Sen.
And I'm Ralph LaBella.
We wanted to talk a little bit about high school sports, which is always exciting and always interesting. And you're not always going to win because, for example, in the state basketball championships this year, there was domination from the private schools, which that happens from time to time. It hasn't happened on a regular basis, but certainly on the boys' side, BC High was a powerhouse that would have beaten a lot of Division III teams. I don't doubt at all. And Malden Catholic was almost as good. They didn't beat BC High in the regular season, but an extremely competitive team that hammered Norwood, which was an outstanding team coached by Kristen McDonald, a woman who's coached boys for the last 3 years in Norwood.
Yeah, I was talk about the Melrose girls basketball team. They were, I believe, they ended up 8-12, but at one time they were 1-9. They really came on in the second half of the year. So I'm looking for good things next year. We've already, I know Coach Hirschfeld met with them, and we already put them in a tournament up at St. Joe's in Maine. It's a 5-game tournament. You sleep over 2 nights, and it's right on the main campus, right on Sebago Lake. So we're trying to get that, and then hopefully Stonehill College. So get the girls to play, and maybe up to 10 games in tournaments, and then in the league. But the key to when you're talking about high school sports, I felt last summer that we weren't putting enough time into it. The girls, and they were playing in the league, and that was about it. And there were a couple of them playing AAU, but this team here, I really believe, if they compete in 2 tournaments and play in a league, would ended up 7-3 in the second half of this season, and they have everybody but 2 players back, the whole starting lineup's back, and I think they can be really good. I think they can go deep into the tournament if they do what I hope they will do, because so many of those players are very close to becoming, to me, all-star type players in the Freedom Division. They beat Wilmington at the end of the year. They beat Stoneham. They beat Burlington at the end of the year. They lost to Watertown because Watertown has that real good center she was a senior. The team that they're going to battle with will be Wakefield. That's my feeling. If they come in as where they were in the second half of the year, if they come in at the beginning of the season next year, they could be battling for the Freedom Division title.
Well, there's been a big change in the high school sports ranking system this year as the MIAA switched to a combination of strength of schedule and opponent with their opponents, as well as margin of victory. So even if you had a good record, you could potentially miss the playoffs. Well, if you had 500, you're going to make the playoffs. But teams that were lowly ranked by this system, and it's a little bit of a black box, didn't do well. In the volleyball tournament, Melrose was able to win into the Final Four, and which would be the equivalent of their 9th sectional title. And every single team that was in the final 8 teams were highly competitive in both basketball and volleyball. So instead of having these first-round games where teams with great records and not so great teams got eliminated by the lower seed, the tournament improved a lot. So I've not been a big supporter of the MIAA through the years, but I think they got it right this time. There was some discussion on the football side that you had to have at least 3 wins, not just have a good ranking, because if you play in a great league and you lose all the time, nobody really feels good about that. So Melrose, even though they finished 8-12, they were, I think, 42nd in Division II. So they weren't quite on the qualifying edge. So they're going to have to get to at least 500. They're still going to have trouble. The strength of the Middlesex League by far right now is Woburn. Woburn's got an exceptional program, and they're the kids who are going to be sophomores are a powerhouse. The one thing, the X factor in high school sports is you never know what kids are going to leave. So obviously Sam Dewey reclassified and was at Brooks and earned a scholarship to the University of Illinois. So how good was the player on your team that's gone? She got a Division I scholarship. Cecilia Kay, who is at Bishop Fenwick, is a two-time All-Scholastic, was the Salem News North Shore All-League top player in the area. And, and when you lose those kind of talent, it's hard to make up for it, even if you have a lot of other good players.
But with the two of them, you can see why they left. Number one, Cecilia's Catholic school.
Right.
And that's the reason. She would have left anyway, even if Melrose had a powerhouse team. Dewey left because she wanted an extra year so she can get a scholarship. So she made the right move. But those are players that would have left anyway. Those two players would have definitely have left. We've lost girls throughout the years, even when we had powerhouse teams to Arlington Catholic. One time when we had Kazuba's daughter with that real good player.
Maura Buckley.
Buckley went. And, if you had those two players, it would have made us a lot stronger. But the last two players, Dewey and Cecilia, they would have left no matter what because of their situations. But I'm going to tell you, I'm really confident that I'm looking at Melrose to go 16-4, 15-5 next year, at least if they do what we hope they do this summer. Because the teams they beat at the end of the year, they're going to be facing them twice. And and the JV team that I coach, we beat all three of those teams by at least 15 points, sometimes in the 20s. So the talent they have coming up, the talent we have coming up, is a lot stronger. And we beat those teams anyway. Watertown's losing their center. We split with Watertown in the JV. So the talent-wise, and Wakefield's losing a lot of their best talent. I really believe that Melrose, to me, is favored to win the Freedom Division next year. Because I've seen these players, I've seen where they came from, and I see where they are now, and I see how excited they are for next year, and hopefully there's no injuries and things just work out. But the thing I like too, Ron, is that the 8th grade is really strong. The 8th grade and the JV team has a lot of players. There'll be two or three of them making the team next year because there's only a couple of positions. But the year after, they're going to have a lot of talent coming into that program because one more year for some of these freshman team players from last year who are talented, one more year in the JV, when they come up as juniors, they're going to really help that team. So I think for the next 5 years, Melrose is going to be one of the stronger teams in the Freedom Division.
Well, two big factors are there are players who leave basketball for volleyball, not just in the local area, but nationally. Volleyball participation is up dramatically and basketball participation is down. Obviously, the same types of athletes flourish in both sports. And the second is you just don't know where kids are going to go to school for whatever reason. So,
But the one thing, though, Ron, is with the JV girls that I had, basketball's their number one sport for every one of them.
Okay.
Not volleyball. Basketball's their number one sport. And you can see how much they love it, the way they practiced every day, the way they played in games. Same thing with this senior class. They're going to want to do the best they can do.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is that it goes cyclically. Like a couple of years, Melrose was in the top 25% of the Globe all sports record tracking in Dalton Division III. So they were winning almost 60% of their games and were highly ranked. Right now, this year, they've won 44% of games and they're 29th out of 39 in the division. And that doesn't really reflect anything except some teams are higher and some teams are lower at other times. Obviously, girls soccer's done really well lately. Wrestling's done spectacularly. Volleyball's always good. Football's been down a little bit this year. I think some of the track programs were not as dominant as they have been in the past.
But about 5 years ago, they were right up with it, weren't they?
Oh yeah, but it goes up and down. There's very few constants. Like Watertown in field hockey, how do you get a championship field hockey program every year? Well, you have the same coach there for 30-something years, and I suppose that the girls who played field hockey 25 years ago probably have their daughters playing field hockey for Watertown now.